Thank you, Leanne. I think that was fabulous, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions on how the Surrey Art Gallery has actually made some, very clear decisions about what they will and not do. For example, in their collections, they will always show something that they can show in the future. I think it was Nancy Patterson's work, for example. Anyway, I think some of these questions will come back. I'm already thinking, how do some of the galleries that the OAG serves, or that's in our membership, that might have interest in moving in these directions, and how might they be able to do that in the existing infrastructures that they have? And I think some of these questions will come up, and I think they're the more practical how-tos that we're also seeking in this symposium. Anyway, we're going to move on to the last set of presentations. I am really happy to welcome Gordon Duggan and Sarah Joyce. So Gordon has 25 years of experience working in cultural institutions and with artists from around the world. He studied painting at the University of Calgary, and he completed his MA in industrial design. He then he's also an award-winning furniture and industrial designer, and he was the course director at Parnham College Design UK. He returned to the contemporary art world when he was offered the position of new media art manager at the Lisson Gallery in London. He worked there with galleries and artists worldwide, and using his experience in technology and art, he's an advocate for freedom of expression and has lectured nationally and internationally on art, the law, and copyright. I'm going to do a quick introduction to, if I can figure out how to get to it on my screen, Sarah Joyce. So Sarah also has about 25 years of experience working in cultural institutions with artists from around the world. She has an education in the visual arts, art history and conservation, and visual culture from British and Canadian universities. She was head of conservation at the Glenbow Museum for 5 years, and she lived and has worked in Italy, Israel, and the UK, where she was the senior conservator and acting head of electronic and time-based media art conservation at the Tate for several years. She's also responsible for new media research, artist interviews, and has managed international exhibitions of the Tate Media Collection. In 2014, this duo, Sarah and Gordon, the founding members founded the New Media Gallery in New Westminster, and they were actually have represented over 100 artists from 25 countries through original and innovative exhibitions, supported by unique programs of talks, programs, workshops, internships, and educational partnerships with Vancouver universities and colleges. It has become one of the best attended galleries in Vancouver. Congratulations. So the directors, they recently established the Learning Lab, which is a new STEAM teaching space focused on bringing contemporary arts, technology, and critical thinking in technology to children. And anyway, it's very exciting. I was not so familiar with your space or work until very recently, and I'm sure many others are looking forward to hearing from both of you. Please welcome Sarah and Gordon. Thank you.
Hello. Okay.
Hello? Okay. Thank you, Zainab, Linda, Jessica, OAG, and Leanne and Rosamond for inviting us here, for speaking with us, and for everybody for attending today. What we're going to do is we're going to introduce a few stats that describe the New Media Gallery, and then we're going to describe 4 different relationships. So very quickly. The New Media Gallery exists in the city of New Westminster. It's a city of 84,000. It's quite small. It's the geographical and historic center of Metro Vancouver. It's a very small public gallery, 2,000 to 3,000 square feet.
So it would fit, our largest version would fit inside.
Inside this.
Oh, our largest version would fit inside this space. Typically, we're 2/3 of this space.
We're the Civic Gallery for New Westminster. We've only been around for 4 years. So what we're talking about here is a growth phase. How do we grow this thing that didn't exist, where a city had no knowledge of an art gallery, first of all, not very much knowledge of contemporary art. So this growth stage is very important. We're on the 3rd floor of the Anvil Center. The Anvil Center is a grand 84,000 square foot, very shiny glass building, LEEDs Platinum building, and we're tucked away on the 3rd floor, so we have no street presence at all, not very much signage, very limited signage. You have to really know about us to get to us. We're a bit hard to find. We've curated over 19 group exhibitions with 100 artists from 26 countries now. We only curate group exhibitions. We've shown artists like Martin Creed, Tracy Emin, Christian Marclay, Pippilotti Rist, Karsten Haller, together with emerging artists. So we combine emerging artists with these big artists, and that just yanks up the emerging artists. We're very excited about doing that. We strive to show a high percentage of female artists. In fact, up until the last couple of exhibitions, we were, I think, the gallery with the highest percentage of female artists in Canada. We have active educational programming for K-12 universities and colleges, and we're really growing that educational program. We're currently averaging, for a very small gallery, about 100 to 150 visitors a day. Our last exhibition was 10 weeks, 9,000 visitors. We see a high return attendance, people coming back to every exhibition. We know this, and we're going to talk about this, because we're on the floor all the time. We see a number of visitors coming to each exhibition more than once. In fact, we have people coming back 2, 3, 4 times. So this is, I think, quite extraordinary. Rosamond showed a slide, Peter Weibel's comment about creating knowledgeable citizens, and I think this is very apropos with regard to how we're constructing and thinking of the gallery space. Yep.
So what we're going to do is we're going to discuss the gallery in terms of kind of 4 key relationships. One is these relationships are with the city, with the space, with the work, and with the public. So we'll start with the city. When we began the New Media Gallery, the city had never had an art gallery before. The community, they kind of built an art center and forgot to put an art gallery in it. So the community, much like they did in Surrey, said, we want an art gallery. So one of the things they were looking at was the idea of a new media or an electronic media gallery, but they didn't know what that was. And through a serendipitous meeting, Sarah met one of the people on the task force, and she said, well, we can come and explain to you what a new media gallery is or what a new media gallery can be.
And at that point, we were very excited because this was in our wheelhouse. We were excited about this idea of a new gallery. You're always excited about the idea of starting a new gallery and what this might mean. We didn't necessarily think we would be the ones starting it, but it was exciting.
So over the next year, we kind of did presentations to explain to them what it was and what it could be. And it kind of came down to a moment that someone mentioned about hockey. So in one of our presentations, we decided that we would talk about the Canucks and the fact that hockey is a very popular thing. And if you look at the Canucks, none of the Canucks actually come from Vancouver. What Vancouver does with the Canucks is they bring in the best hockey players from all over the world. They put them under the mantle of the Vancouver Canucks. They produce the best hockey in the world, which produces a big audience. Through that, hockey improves, the community around hockey improves. They're presenting a sport that's inspirational and aspirational. And we said, this is essentially what we want to do with the gallery. We said, we want to bring in the most exciting work from all over the world to New Westminster. We want to create a community that's inspired and aspires to make exciting work. And they thought that was the way to go.
This analogy was very necessary in order to have them understand what this could be. And it was something that we worked on for quite a while. What would that analogy be?
And so ultimately they agreed to go ahead with the project. As a small city, like Sarah said, of around 80,000 people, never had an art gallery before, we had convinced them to begin their first attempt at an art gallery with an international new media gallery. In a 1,800 square foot space on the 3rd floor of a building. But on the other hand, what they were giving us was a blank slate. So this was an opportunity for us to build a civic gallery with no preconceived notions of what a civic gallery would be. So we were able to determine every aspect of what the gallery would be, how it would work, how the budgets would work, how the space would change, how we would engage with the public. Every aspect of the gallery we could write from scratch. So the New Media Gallery is really a pretty experimental space. So the way that we work is that originally we were on contract. So we had a 2-year contract with them to produce.
I think they didn't quite trust that this would work.
They went ahead with it, but they were a little nervous. So we had a 2-year contract to produce New Media Galleries, and we had goals and deliverables and all those things that cities require. And we essentially tripled every one of those goals. And so what they did was they said, this is great, we want to fold you into the city. So we are now a city department.
Unusually, we are directly under our boss is the CAO, the Chief Administrative Officer.
So typically a civic art gallery would be buried somewhere in Parks and Recreation under someone who's the head of something else and something else. So in our case, we're actually the smallest city department, but we report directly to the CAO. So the hierarchy in the city is us, the CAO, the council, the mayor.
This is very important because what it means is a huge amount of bureaucracy just went out the door. We just asked, go to the CAO, have a meeting with her. She is incredibly supportive, believes in the New Media Gallery. So we're able to be nimble, the word you used. We're able to act quite quickly. We're able to find areas of budgetary budgets that might not be available to other people.
Another thing is that the city sees us absolutely as a public service. Everything that we do is completely financed by the city. We have no grants. We've never applied for a grant. So the city sees us as, in fact, they're actually telling us that they don't necessarily want us to go out and find donors and fundraisers because they don't do that with their other services. So
we checked in with them last week, and are you sure you don't want us to, no.
So everything
you are
we do,
a service.
Everything we do is free. We don't even have a donation box. So that's a highly unusual way of working. We have an annual budget, and that annual budget is incredibly flexible. We don't have a capital budget. We don't have any other budgets. Everything kind of comes into our operating budget. If we're working with an artist who needs a certain amount of equipment, we don't have to go through a long, complicated process. In fact, our next exhibition, we're showing virtual reality work by Lisa Jackson. We needed a VR lab. We went out and we built it. So it's not a decision that we have to confer with anyone. We don't have to go through any process. If that's what we need, that's what we kind of do. Having said that, we don't have big budgets. When we started, we had the smallest budget of any gallery in the Lower Mainland. We also have no board, and we have virtual autonomy. We have the ability to program whatever we want within this space. And we have an international mandate. So our mandate from the city is to show international artists. We aren't required to show any local or Canadian content whatsoever, but of course we do. But the fact that they didn't impose that on us in any way is quite an interesting thing as well. So in the eyes of the city, they want us to be a destination, a way of drawing people to New Westminster and a kind of advertisement for a city that's progressive, forward-thinking, exciting.
And so if we are successful, if we can draw people in, this is success in their eyes, and then our budgets will go up. We will get more autonomy if that's possible. So it benefits everybody.
So the way this is going to work is we're going to talk like this, and then we're going to show you a whole bunch of slides really fast, and then we're going to talk about something else. So for our relationship with the city, we didn't really know what to show. So what we're going to show is kind of city officials and elected officials engaging with the gallery.
We work very hard on this relationship. This is very important.
This is the Learning Lab launch, and I'll just quickly talk about this one. So this is the mayor of the city, the parliamentary secretary for technology, and 2 city councillors, and actually one of the children of a city councillor, in a competition with local children to see who can make the best robotic car and have a race at the end. The politicians lost because I gave them smaller wheels. So we fixed the race, but actually, can you just back up? That competition has resulted in something much bigger. It's resulted in us being folded into something called Innovation Week. We're now organizing this whole section of Innovation Week. So they're identifying the arts with innovation. This opens up a whole new area in the city. Another thing that they've discovered is that in terms of all their technological and innovative things the city is doing, like they're doing the city owns its own fiber network, and they're discovering that promoting that by having a politician holding up 2 wires is not very effective. So in terms of images for technology, images like this are great. Here's John Horgan looking at a work by Tuur van Balen and Revital Cohen. Here's another counselor. This is from an exhibition, Trace. In this exhibition, we had work by Patrick Tressé, which was 5 robots that would draw portraits of the visitors in the gallery. So every hour of the exhibition, a visitor would sit for an hour and have their portraits drawn by these 5 robots. So we produced 2,500 drawings over the course of the exhibition. You can see them in the background.
So that was Simon Fraser University wanting to interview someone, and so we pulled in one of our counselors, and this resulted in other positive things going on.
Moving on to this space. So our relationship with the space is a really critical thing to what we are. There was talk yesterday about the idea of the black box and the white box. Those are really definitions for fixed spaces. And our space is not, we don't see our space as a fixed space. Our space is a malleable, ever-changing space. We don't believe that every artwork that exhibits in a space should have to have a dialogue with the original artist's vision. I feel bad saying that inside
Architect's vision.
Or the architect's vision. I feel bad saying that inside this beautiful space by Arthur Erickson, but every work that shows in here has to have a dialogue with this space. And that can be particularly problematic for new media works where you need to isolate audio, you need to block light, you need to have an ever-changing space. So this is a problematic thing. So what we do instead is we actually completely demolish our gallery for every exhibition and rebuild it to be the ideal spaces for the works that we're exhibiting.
And we'll show some photographs of that and some plans.
So we actually have completely rebuilt our gallery 19 times in the last 4 years. Every 13 weeks. And our walls have to be, because we are the city, and we write the building codes. Our walls are all seismically braced.
Proper walls.
Proper walls that meet all of the building codes, all of the safety codes, all of the fire regs.
And we do this in about a 3-week span. So we pull the interior, all the walls down in the interior and rebuild in 3 weeks.
We typically allow ourselves 18 days for a show change. That's to deinstall, demolish, build the walls, paint the walls, finish the walls, install the work.
And we're right in there helping with the
We also believe that the
demolition.
spaces should be effective spaces. So quite often when you go into a gallery, the gallery will feel the same every time you enter. Our space, we've been told, can actually be quite disorienting because we so radically change the entire feel of the space for every exhibition. And so these spaces are not coming just from us. They come from dialogue with the artists, because every time that we decide on a paint color or room size, it has an impact on the other artists in the exhibition. We only show group exhibitions.
So this idea of effective spaces is very, very important to us. We work so hard on this. We're up nights. We have different computer programs where we will try to understand how these works are going to play together, sound together. We build models. Gordon 3D printed some little models of various things so we could really understand how this is going to work in an effective way, how it will affect the
So we're always
visitor.
balancing all of these issues when we're designing our spaces. The other thing that people don't really think about is that if you're doing new media curation, you're really curating with waves. Almost every piece that we exhibit has either got light waves or sound waves. And there's only one way to isolate sound and light, and that's to put a physical barrier between pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So that creates a whole different set of problems. Again, that goes back to the original architecture of the space and trying to create a space that is a flexible space. So our space was not designed as a new media gallery, and it's actually a thing we wrestle with constantly. And then we'll talk about risk, I think, a little bit later when we talk about specific pieces. But we also, partly because of how we sit within the city, there are a lot of situations where things that would normally be seen as crystal clear regulations are actually judgmental things that can be twisted a little bit. So we're able to show things in a different way. And this also relates to how we engage with our audience. So what we're going to do is just quickly kind of show you some floor plans. So this will be all 19 floor plans of what we've done with our gallery. So this is our gallery space. The yellow is the exhibition, and the walls are obviously walls. So this was our first exhibition.
So what you're saying is the yellow is the gallery space.
This space here is actually shared with the museum, so we only have it some of the year.
So you can see that you can imagine that type of building and pulling down and building up again. It's quite extensive.
So this is an example of an artist who needed a 65-foot wall in a 60-foot gallery.
And we fitted it.
So we realized that if we tilted it and ran it into the window space, we could fit the work, which creates another set of circumstances. The round room was for Matt Collishaw's Shop Zoetrope. I don't know if any of you know Matt Collishaw's work. He's a British artist. And this was an 18-screen video installation. So with our installations are actually pretty ambitious. And this is a 14-screen video installation and 2 other works. This is our current exhibition. The dates are wrong. And this is our next exhibition. So this will be where Lisa Jackson's work is, and this will be a Jonathan Schipper work. So for that exhibition, we're actually bringing in between 8 and 12 tons of salt.
That you'll walk through with a 3D printer extruder hanging from cables that moves around the room and builds constructions out of the salt.
And so this is just a quick shot of one of our exhibitions. This is what our gallery looks like every 13 weeks. In the current exhibition that we just closed, that our technicians should have demolished by now, we actually installed 110 16-foot sheets of drywall to give you an idea of the scale of our builds. We also reuse all of our studs. We reuse all of our insulation. We recycle all of our drywall. We're a LEED Gold building, so we actually have virtually no waste. Some of these steel studs have been now used in 19 different installations. And these are some of the finished shots, so we'll go quite quickly through them. This is the one that was in construction. This shows us actually installing 6 different video artists in 1,800 square feet. So which one? Right. So this was an exhibition called Children with Candice Breitz, Candice Breitz, Lenka Clayton, Christian Yankowski, Elisa Giardina,
Papa.
it's cut off, sorry,
Chiara
and Chiara
Sciota.
Sciota in the back. And then there was a 2-screen Kerry Tribe in a separate gallery. So these are all the same gallery.
That was a 65-foot.
This was a 65-foot by 12-foot video projection on a curve. It was, again, too big to fit in the gallery, so we bent it.
So that was the space that we pay a lot of attention to. This idea of effective space is very important for how the visitor understands the work, and we work very closely with the artist to create that space. Now the works, the relationship with the works. We work from the works to a curatorial position. We really push this so that we have looked at art for many, many years. We know a lot of artists. We've had many conversations with artists over those years. We're constantly looking at art. That's all we do. We just are trying to understand it.
One of the things that we don't come up with because we do group shows, there's this idea that they have to have a theme or a thread that connects them. And what we avoid at all costs is us coming up with a theme and then trying to illustrate it with art. We think that diminishes the role of the art in the process. We also think that it means that when you're looking at work, you're looking at that work through a particular lens. Whatever the research you're looking at the work tainted by the lens of the research that you're doing. So what we do is we actually are always looking at thousands of works, and we're looking for some thread or some connection that appears between 2 or 3 or 15 of the works. And then we build an exhibition around that, and then we try and extract from that a curatorial position.
So you might say that we've been curating some of these exhibitions for 10 years, 15 years, because we know these works, and then suddenly an exhibition will come together and will make itself apparent.
We've
got 5 minutes.
We got 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
let's go fast.
Pretty good then. We'll skip over some of these things. We get very involved. We work really hard to remove barriers between the audience and the work. We do that partly by what we call stepping back. So whenever we make a decision about the exhibition, we try and step away from it and say, if I'd never been in an art gallery, would this encourage me to go forward or to step back from the process? So we're going to really quickly just run through now examples of work. Let's just talk about risk really quickly. This is an example of Karsten Nicolai's 334 meters per second. It's 2 8-meter plexiglass tubes which shoot fireballs at the speed of sound and make a sonic boom in the gallery every 10 minutes. So it's a visualization of the speed of sound.
It's a phenomenal piece.
It's fueled by 2 propane tanks. And so this gets into the idea of risk and what we will do for artists. So in this case, we had to vent the piece directly to the outside of the building. So you can see these vents here. That's actually a 50-foot wall that we built with all new ventilation in it that ties into the ventilation from the washrooms in the building. We had to write a 150-page fire safety plan. I had to become a fire marshal. We were all trained in how to deal with propane gas explosions.
This is how we get over risk.
And we had
just
to
go for it.
The propane, all of the gasworks had to be CSA approved, which we were able to convince the inspectors of, on condition that we take the CSA approval off after the exhibition. And it's based on the fact that we have a particular presence within the gallery.
Karsten Nicolai said, I will never show this in another gallery. And so
so this is a work that I don't think any other gallery could exhibit. And this also feeds into the fact that we're reporting to the CAO. So when we talk to the fire chief, and it's a discretionary call whether something will pass or not, it's more likely to pass, because if we have a problem, we go to our boss, who's his immediate boss, and she says, sort this out. So we have a little more clout there.
Just go through this quickly.
We're going to go through this really quickly because we're out of time. So these are different works. This is Karsten Haller, Jennifer and Kevin McCoy, another Karsten Haller,
Tim Lee. Raphael Lozano.
This is our next work. This is the Jonathan Schipper piece. So this is the salt that we're bringing in, and then it prints architectural forms in the salt through the whole space. And then we'll get into this, which is a really critical thing that we do. We call it radical curatorial engagement.
This idea of radical curatorial engagement is a bit tongue-in-cheek. Essentially what it means is that we each spend about a third of our day in the gallery with the visitors.
So when you arrive at our gallery, instead of having a receptionist, either Sarah or I will be at the front desk. Every single visitor who comes to the gallery is offered a curatorial tour. So that means that this year we've actually given 20,000 people tours of the gallery.
And they're not tours, they're actually conversations in the gallery.
So rather than, we find that what that means is in terms of people engaging with the work, rather than us having a text on the wall, which is always written for a specific audience, whoever comes in, we're able to engage them in the way that they're most comfortable. So we may have a group of kindergarten kids. We have to describe the work in a very different way to 4 and 5-year-olds than we do to academics. But because it's us and because we know the work, we're able to do that. So we can engage people. So instead of it being a text that tells you a certain thing about the work, it ends up always being a dialogue about the work. So it's always a back and forth.
These are discursive conversations in the space. They connect with the world. They connect with people's interests. They encourage people to come back again and again, so we get repeat visitors coming to every exhibition. They're very excited about this relationship, they're excited about understanding the work and having these conversations. We learn from these conversations. We learn huge amounts. So by the end of the exhibition, we have heard from physicists, many different types of scientists. We've heard from children, we've heard from educators, we've heard from huge numbers of people, and it really informs how we build our exhibitions.
I think as well, going back to our relationship with the city, when we started this project, we warned the city that we estimated 30 to 50% of the people who walked in the door would kind of go, I don't know what this shit is, but it's not art. And what we found is that now we're coming up on 100,000 visitors in 4 years. And of that, we've had fewer than 10 people who have had that response. Mm-hmm. So we're actually shocked at how open and receptive people are. In one of our recent shows, we showed a transgenic seeds by Eduardo Cac that were his DNA combined with a petunia under a microscope, and we had no one questioning that as artistic practice.
But we had great conversations. It was fantastic.
And the other thing is that we treat every visitor the same. So we actually have groups of severely autistic people who come through the gallery who we tour through and we get discussions. We have a regular visitor who has severe brain damage. We have people who have never been in an art gallery before. We have children. We try and not have any preconception about who the person is. We engage with them all on the same level.
So, for example, and I'm just finished. Yeah, Martin Creed, Half the Air in a Given Space, the balloon room that many of you might know. We had the black version of balloons. So this was a really profound. Sure. This is a really profound experience, and we had groups of autistic people coming in, and this became their space. This became their favorite space. So this was fascinating for people who were studying autism.
We also encourage people to engage how they wish. So it's not uncommon to come in and find people lying on our floor,
crawling around,
screaming,
singing,
shouting,
screaming,
jumping.
It can be very loud and
this,
dynamic.
if I can go maybe a few seconds over, this is a work called Fly Revolver by David Bowen, and this is actually a .357 Magnum loaded with blanks on a robotic arm that points at the visitor. The behavior of the revolver is entirely controlled by 50 to 100 houseflies.
It's one of the most dangerous feeling works I've ever experienced.
This again goes into the degree that we will go to get the artwork installed correctly. We're actually the only gallery in the world that's been able to load the revolver. And so that involved us dealing with the police, the RCMP, firearms officers, safety, having custom-made blank cartridges. The gun had to be specially modified so there was no possibility of any debris firing out the front. It's actually got hidden vents in the top of the barrel so that it vents sideways. We had to put a cage door on the door. If we left it, we had to lock and cage the door. We had to unload the gun every time we closed, et cetera, et cetera. But we will go that extra mile for the work. We also have a lot of children come through the gallery, and a lot of them have been coming since before they could walk. So we've actually got a group of kind of 4-year-old kids whose entire life and their entire understanding of art is coming from seeing new media work, which is really pretty exciting.
And they've taken ownership of the gallery, so they come in now dragging their grandparents, their parents, and they sort of really own this space.
This is a group of, I think, 4-year-olds looking at Chiara Sciotto's work, which is children describing or remembering their moment of birth.
We construct spaces so this type of thing can happen.
This is a nice story, so we'll just quickly talk about this. This is a 15-year-old girl who came into the gallery with her best friend.
This is not a set-up shot.
Who wanted to be a photographer, and they said, "Can we do some photography in the gallery?"
And we said, sure.
We said, sure. And this is one of a suite of shots that these two 15-year-old kids did.
Set up together.
They put it on social media, and it went viral.
It went viral.
And it ultimately ended up on the cover of one of the biggest dance magazines in Europe.
And the 15-year-old photographer has now decided this is her life's work. She's going to become a photographer. I'm not sure about the dancer. I don't think she is, but the photographer has taken this on. So. And
this is. We also do responses to work where we invite different performers and different artists to come in and respond to the exhibition. So this is Kevin Spence and Shauna Begonia. Doing a response to the Brink exhibition, and this is a work by Jacob Tonsky called Balance from Within, which is a Victorian sofa that robotically balances on the point of one leg. This is a work by Alana Ho, and I forgot to credit Keiko, who did a performance with an autistic 6-year-old. This is a Butoh performance we did in the last exhibition. And then we'll just really super quickly talk about the Learning Lab. We've been growing ourselves slowly. In January, we opened the Learning Lab, which is possibly the state-of-the-art art and technology teaching space in the Lower Mainland. We have 3D printers, 3D scanners, a full Mac lab. If any of you are familiar with Little Bits, is a modular technology system developed by MIT that forms the basis for our technological learning.
So kids come in, they do workshops using technology. So we're doing coding for 3-year-olds and all sorts of really
by the end of the year, we're hoping to have 6 3D printers, 6 3D scanners, a Mac lab, a dozen iPads, multiple mini projectors.
I think that's it.
That's it.
And you can ask questions. Thank you.